The privacy paradox at Apple raises critical questions for tech workers. Broadcom's VMware pricing strategy, are they winning or losing? The FBI and government agencies' new twist, now they love encryption and hate backdoors. And has the Tesla Cybertruck met its match in the Great White North? Welcome to #Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. In a case that could have far-reaching implications for workplace privacy, an Apple manager has filed a lawsuit that exposes some complex balance between corporate security and employee privacy rights. Amar Bhakta, who manages digital ad tech operations at Apple, alleges the company has created what he calls a panopticon, a system of total surveillance over employees' personal devices. The lawsuit reveals a fascinating technical dilemma that many companies face. Apple requires employees to use Apple devices for work, but prohibits company-issued devices from being used personally. This forces employees into a choice that should interest every CISO and IT manager. Use two separate devices? Rather impractical. Or allow their employer extensive access to their personal device. The technical implementation allegedly creates a perfect storm of privacy issues. When employees use personal devices for work, they typically use their personal iCloud accounts. Apple only allows one per device. According to the lawsuit, this gives Apple access not to just work-related data, but to the personal data across all devices synced to that iCloud account, including family devices. Perhaps most startling for security professionals is the claimed scope of surveillance. The lawsuit alleges Apple's policies allow them to conduct physical, video, and electronic surveillance of employees, even in home offices, and search both Apple and non-Apple devices on company premises. For IT leaders, this case raises critical questions about mobile device management policies. How do you balance legitimate security needs with employee privacy? When does monitoring cross the line from security to surveillance? And critically, how do you implement BYOD policies that protect both corporate assets and employee privacy? Now, this isn't just about Apple. It's about setting precedents for workplace surveillance in an era of remote work and BYOD policies. The outcome could influence how companies structure their device management and privacy policies moving forward. Broadcom's aggressive pricing strategy for VMware is, depending on the day and the article you read, either a declared victory or triggering what could be the biggest shakeup in enterprise virtualization that we've seen in years. While some customers have growled, some have left, and some have even threatened lawsuits, there were indications that things had settled down a bit and maybe Broadcom had won the battle. Broadcom's strategy was based on a bet that for many companies, the cost of migration will exceed even what some have termed astronomical price increases. AT&T, who was suing Broadcom, estimating their migration, after what they said was more than 1,000% increase, would cost them between $40 and $50 million, a price tag that many organizations simply can't afford. We don't know what happened in this case. We do know AT&T settled with Broadcom. But in recent days, a number of other key defections have occurred. The latest is UK-based Beeks Group, a major financial sector service provider. They've just jumped ship from VMware to OpenNebula after facing what they said was a staggering 900% price increase. Now here's why this matters. Beeks isn't just any customer. We're talking about a company running over 20,000 virtual machines across 20 data centers. But they're not alone. An Australian firm recently moved 24,000 VMs to Nutanix, and we're seeing a pattern that might be sending some shockwaves through enterprise IT. And even if Broadcom is winning in the short run, this all happened pretty quickly. Who knows how many CIOs are doing what they do best, sucking it up for now and planning with their teams how to make a move at a slower speed and a lower cost. If that's true, we could really be seeing the reshaping of the enterprise virtualization landscape. While VMware has long been the gold standard, other companies like OpenNebula, Nutanix, and others are suddenly finding themselves with major enterprise migrations landing in their laps. And IT leaders may be asking bigger questions about vendor lock-in over a number of some bigger questions and some good ones about vendor lock-in, migration strategies, and the true cost of dependency on proprietary virtualization platforms. Remember when law enforcement hated encryption and was always demanding backdoors to be able to get in for their own purposes? Remember how so many experts, even those who agreed with the intent of law enforcement, warned that if you left backdoors, bad guys would find them? Well, in a surprising development, both the FBI and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, are now actively warning Americans to use encryption for phone and text. And they are also warning about sending traditional text messages between iPhones and Android devices. While Apple's recent adoption of RCS messaging created headlines, there's a serious security gap that's only now getting widespread attention. When you message within ecosystems, iPhone to iPhone or Android to Android, you're protected by encryption. But cross-platform messaging remains vulnerable with no encryption in sight. Add to this that the bad guys have found that backdoor and are so deep in the US phone system that it may take months or years to figure out how to get them out, if it's even possible. The biggest player so far? The Chinese state-sponsored attacks by a group known as Salt Typhoon, linked to China's Ministry of Public Security. The FBI has confirmed that they have broken into the phone systems using those backdoors and facilities that law enforcement needed to monitor calls in the US, and the compromised data that they've gotten is mostly metadata, but some government and political figures have had their actual call and text contents intercepted. CISA's Jeff Green is specifically recommending encrypted apps for all communications. They're also advocating timely OS updates, responsibly managed encryption, and phishing-resistant MFA for email, social media, and collaboration tools. What's particularly interesting is the timing. Apple's iOS 18.2 will soon allow iPhone users to change their default messenger from iMessage. Meanwhile, the GSMA and Google are promising encryption for RCS, but with no firm timeline. Until then, security experts are recommending use something else like WhatsApp or Signal for cross-platform communications. Finally, that tough-looking Tesla Cybertruck may have met its match in the Great White North. An owner in Alberta reported that his $166,000 Canadian investment in a cyber beast essentially bricked itself in balmy -18°C weather while trying to use the defroster, a failure that raises some serious questions about Tesla readiness for harsh climates. Nobody's really sure what happened, but the incident may have exposed a critical weakness in Tesla's heat pump system, which was specifically designed to improve efficiency in cold weather. The owner reported an unusual fan noise under the dash before the complete system failure, suggesting potential design issues with the thermal management system. Whatever happened, the truck shut down at 46% battery charge, well above critical levels, and couldn't engage drive or reverse. Even more concerning, the attempts to boost the vehicle, a great Canadian tradition, only provided temporary power restoration, pointing to potential systemic issues rather than a simple battery problem. For anyone watching the Tesla or the EV space in general, this raises some crucial questions about cold weather EV adoption. The incident might be a one-off, but it might also suggest we're still in early days for winter-ready electric Cybertrucks. And as I read more about this story, it turns out the owner had driven it for only 2 hours before it had been towed off, and he said in one quote that I hope I got wrong, that he hoped Tesla would reimburse him. You mean for close to 170,000 Canadian, this thing is not under an absolute warranty? The beast is supposed to be designed to look tough, but to borrow on that old Texas saying, all hat and no cattle, maybe the Cybertruck is all helmet and no ice rink. That's our show for today. Reach me at editorial@technewsday.ca. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a thrilling Thursday.